What's up, guys? I'm here to talk about the term why are your ketones lower on carnivore than they are on keto? And a lot of people have different reasons for this. Um, there are no real good documented reasons why, but what I can tell you is people that eat leaner sources of protein and they don't focus so much on fattier sources, like twice the amount of fat content to protein, is when they notice their ketone levels are all out of whack. When you have a higher level of fat content and lower protein levels, everything seems to balance out, right? So that's what the ketogenic diet is all about. Um, Whenever you're in ketosis, you're doing like 75 to 80% fat, so the predominant caloric intake is coming from fat. Very minimal is coming from protein, but quite often you'll find a lot of carnivores that are having 120, 140, 160 plus grams of protein per day. And I'm not telling you that protein automatically turns to sugar. What I'm telling you is there are a lot of hypersensitivities to protein in general. So there are some people that can have 100 grams of protein per day and they're fine, but some of them are super hypersensitive to it and they can't have any more than that. They start getting up to that 115, 120, 130 gram protein range, and all of a sudden their blood sugar starts coming up. Me, it's not that way. I've consumed 2.5 pounds of beef in a 20-minute window on camera so people can see what I'm doing, and then tested my blood sugar over the next 6 hours, and my blood sugar stayed completely low. I don't have a problem with that. It rose 10 points and then immediately came right back down, actually lower than what it was when I started. I started at 86, and then over a 6-hour window, 2-hour window, it went up to like 102. And then after it went up to 102, within like another 2 or 3 hours, it was back down to 84. So it was lower than when I started. On a carnivorous diet, I think people are hooked on this whole scenario that you have to chase ketones like you do on like when you're on a keto diet. You're trying to be in ketosis. That's the whole point. You want to have a ketone level of 0.5 millimolar or higher, which is the start of nutritional ketosis. But on a carnivorous diet, it's not that way. You're not chasing ketones on carnivore. The whole point behind it is to eliminate as much junk as you possibly can, so you can figure out the types of foods that are causing your conditions. You can heal. Some people produce high levels of ketones on carnivore, other people don't. It's just, let me stop what I'm doing so I can walk somewhere else. It's, what it is you're replacing a lot of your fat macros with protein macros, and I'm trying to get this phone to adjust. It's a $1,000 phone and it's not adjusting. It makes no sense. You're replacing a lot of your macros that you had before on a ketogenic diet with just protein and fat, right? And a lot of people come to me and they're like, how come my ketones went from 1.7, 1.9, 2.0, 2.1, now I'm down at 0.9, 1.1, 1.0. There's nothing wrong with that. The ketones that you're showing don't necessarily mean that you're not in a good level of ketosis. There's nobody that says 1.1 ketones is any more beneficial than 2.2 ketones. There was a study that I was reading where they were talking about following a bunch of overweight people that had ketone reading of like 0.9 to 1.6, and they found that they lost like an average of 1 to 1.5 pounds per week more than people that had like 2.5. It could simply mean that you're just not regulating ketones enough. It could simply mean that on a carnivorous diet, your body's able to actually adjust things better and utilize more of the nutrients it's getting, rather than just excessively taking in fat. Like on a ketogenic diet where you're having high levels of fat, on carnivore, you could simply be down all the way to 55, 60 50 to 60% of it being fat and still be completely fine and not have any symptoms at all. And once you start getting below that, like 50 grams of fat would equal, like 450 calories. Well, 50 grams of, no, I take that back, 100 calories. 9 calories per 45. What does that come out to? Did I say that? I said that wrong. 50 grams of fat would come out to double the amount of protein. So if I'm having 4 calories per gram of protein, so that's 200 to 400, 500. Yeah. Okay, so I was wrong. It's twice the amount. So as long as I'm having 50 grams of fat and I'm having 50 grams of protein, I'm still going to have twice the amount of fat calories as I am protein calories, so I'm still balanced out. It's what starts happening is when you start dropping down to that really low range, like say I had 100 grams of protein and I only had 60 grams of fat. My ratios are off here, and this is where we start getting closer to that form of rabbit starvation, where our protein and our fat is not balanced properly, and our body's just, the whole balance between fat and protein is way off. We're starting too lean of sources. Insulin starts to come up more. Blood sugar starts to come up more. And now we're starting to take these lean sources that are starting to spike our insulin more than what a really fatty source would be. So that's why, Thomas DeLauer and them will recommend that you be careful when you start using whey proteins and stuff like that. Use it to your benefit because it spikes insulin. It's a very lean protein. It doesn't have any fat to it. So it'll spike insulin almost immediately because of how lean it is. Well, a lot of times on a carnivorous diet, I'm seeing people that are, I like fatty sources. I like ribeye. I like a 7327 beef, even if it's not grass fed. I try to get grass fed if I can, but if I can't, I'm human. I gotta eat what I can afford. And that's just that. So on a carnivorous diet, you're often going to find that people's ketones are not as high as when they're in ketosis. For one, they're simply not eating the level of fat to protein ratios. They're not the same. And number two, just over-consuming lean protein in general instead of fatty sources of protein is another huge downfall. So people making sure that they're putting grass-fed butter on everything, making sure that they're salting everything, making sure that they're staying at a good balance, at least even protein to fat gram ratio, if not higher, would keep that from happening. But that's a common question. On my keto groups and stuff, people say I'm doing carnivore right now, and my ketone levels are dropping low. Well, for one, you're doing carnivore because you're trying to eliminate things that are causing you to be sick, and number two, you're doing carnivore because you want some more assimilation to simplicity. So if you're doing carnivore and you're expecting to chase ketones, then why wouldn't you just stay on a ketogenic diet? Yeah, I don't get that. There's a lot of people that come to me and they're like, hey, I'm on a carnivore diet and my ketones aren't very high anymore. That's okay. Maybe you're just learning to utilize ketones better. Maybe that's just how your body's functioning on a carnivorous diet with no carbs from vegetable sources and stuff in there. Maybe you need to focus on more fat. Maybe you need to start adding more butter to your food so you can balance that out and you can get some more dietary fat in your system because your body may be using more of the protein sources for things than it is fat. I mean, it is a fuel as well. It's a rebuilding fuel. So on a carnivorous diet, I would not focus on ketone production too much. I would just know if I'm in ketosis, be happy. There are some people that have medical conditions that are super, super sensitive to protein, and they have to watch the amount of protein that they have. But that's an individual. Like journey. You got to be your own detective when it comes to that. You got to try to figure out: does beef cause this? Does chicken cause this? Is it lamb that causes this? Is it bison or what are my sources of protein that I can thrive the best off of, and then try to get those sources. If you're on a carnivorous diet and you're chasing ketones, man, I don't know what else to tell you. On carnivore, you're doing carnivore because you're trying to eliminate everything that could be causing your conditions. You're trying to make yourself feel better. You're trying to heal from things, autoimmune condition, things of that nature. It's not uncommon for people to say, I don't have a high ketone level on carnivore. It's completely normal. This whole myth behind, well, I'm not having any carbs, um, why I should be in a deeper level of ketosis. No, these are people that are coming from other keto groups. They're following bad information. They're making up their own things as they go. A lot of people call carnivore a zero carb diet, but you have to understand carnivore is not really a zero carb diet. There's plenty of carbs in oysters and different types of creams and stuff that people use and make exceptions for raw milk and stuff like that. There's a number of reasons why somebody wouldn't be in a higher level of ketosis. A carnivore is animal foods. If you want to talk about a purest form of carnivore, then you're just talking about animal meat, water, and salt. I mean, the three of those things, and that's it. But people that do a carnivore diet, they get it confused. They think that the ketones have to be high, and that on a carnivore diet, people aren't going to consume stuff like cottage cheese, ricotta cheese, different types of cheeses, different types of milks and creams. It's not how it works. There's a lot of people that do carnivore and they stay in their strict form, the purest strict form where it's just meat, water, and salt. But then there's a lot of people that really screw it up, give the carnivore diet a bad name in general, and they're having all this other stuff involved with it. Now, I'm not saying you're wrong for doing that. Do what works for you. But understand that you're going to be having raw milk, you're going to be having creams and stuff like that. All of that stuff has carbs in it. Eggs have carbs in it. It all has carbs. Carnivore is not a zero carb diet. And where we get this term from, I think it's just considered because there's no vegetables involved. You get plenty of carbs on carnivore. It's just not to the extent that people think it is. And then if they think that it's zero, it's still, unless you're just eating meat, water, and salt only, you're really not zero carb. If you're adding stuff like eggs and things of that nature in there, it's part of the reasons why your body might be a little confused on what's going on. You went from having 20 to 50 grams of carbohydrates before to now you're not having anything. Or if you came from a standard American diet to carnivore, you went from 250, 300, 350 grams of carbohydrates per day to just meat, water, and salt. There's going to be some things. There's going to be an adjustment phase there for a while. So don't chase ketones on carnivore. If you're going to be on a carnivorous diet, be on a carnivorous diet to be on a carnivorous diet, not chase ketones. Most carnivores won't chase ketones, and they will not. They'll eat to satiety. They won't try to track everything. They won't calorie track or anything like that. Most carnivores just eat and listen to their body, and they go off cues of being full and stuff like that. It's kind of subject to what you want to make of it. If you want to follow the carnivore crowd that they add tons of cream cheese and cheeses and milks and stuff like that in there, then do what you do if it works for you. Most people can do that because dairy is very inflammatory, and what happens when inflammatory markers and stuff go up, cortisol levels go up. What happens when cortisol levels go up? You can increase some insulin secretion and blood sugar. There's a number of reasons why you would have lower ketone levels. It's just a number of factors that can go along with it. I mean, it all has to be case-by-case basis. I've seen people on a carnivorous diet that are constantly 2.0 millimolar. They don't eat a lot of meat. They don't eat a lot of fat. Most of the stuff that they're getting is actually coming from their body. But then there's a lot of people out there that like to consume high amounts like me, especially when I'm training. I'm at the gym right now. I'm actually doing keto for the next 30 days to see if my digestive tract is healed to where I can handle the vegetables anymore. But just realize that because your ketones are lower on carnivore doesn't mean you're doing anything. You're not doing anything any worse, and you're not retracting from your diet or your journey by having lower ketone levels. As long as you're in ketosis, that's what matters. If you really wanted to increase your ketone levels, then quit eating 2 or 3 times a day and start eating only once a day. You'll be in ketosis, your ketone levels will rise because you'll be more in a deeper fasted state when you go back to eating again. Most people that do carnivorous eating for long periods of time find that they simply become very, very satiated, and within a couple months of doing it, they're eating 1 meal a day. They're sitting down to just massive steak dinners and stuff like that, and that's it. They don't do it again until the next day, and they're losing freaking tons of weight by doing this, and they just don't feel hungry the rest of the day until it's dinner time again. There's often times when I was, I did carnivore for a year. I started just before Dr. Berry started, and there's often times where I would eat 1 meal and then I wouldn't want to eat for 2 days because I just ate 3 pounds of steak, and I just wasn't hungry for a couple days. Ketone levels would go really high. But if you're eating carnivore in the morning, in the afternoon, and in the evening, and there's no intermittent fasting involved there at all, I'm not saying you have to, kind of not really doing yourself much service, because your body's always having to process the food that's going, that's inside you, instead of trying to work on some of the repairs that it has to work on, healing certain things. And I just picture like a slew of construction workers in my blood just running around fixing stuff whenever I intermittent fast or extended fast. But the more I eat, the more often I eat, the less that's going to happen. So I have to remind myself whenever I'm on carnivore, for one, I'm probably not going to be as hungry. In the beginning, when I start back up, my ketone levels are not going to be as high. And number 3, limit the amount of times that I eat. But when I do eat, make sure that I really eat. Kind of the message I have for you guys today. If you have any questions, just let me know. There is no real research behind why your ketone levels are lower on carnivore than it is keto. The only thing that really makes sense to me is the amount of fat that you're having at one time compared to protein is much higher on keto. I'm talking about macro-wise, just weighing things out in one sitting, than it is on carnivore. Because carnivore, you're getting like a huge abundance of protein and fat in one sitting, and your body's got to be able to process all that. And some people are really sensitive to protein. We know that gluconeogenesis, the old your body's going to take protein and turn it into sugars. It's a falsity. It's not true. We've seen in the last few years that they've already proven that gluconeogenesis is a demand-driven process. So, saying that if I eat too much protein, my body's automatically going to take it or turn it into chocolate milkshakes in my blood, it's BS. It's not true at all. Your organs have to run off glucose. That's how they're designed. But your body is smart enough to take protein and convert it into glucose. So it has just enough glucose for your organs to run on. So when you start wrapping your mind around, my body can do exactly what it needs to do with very little and still be fully functioning, do I really need all these carbs and sugar and stuff that I've been being told I needed for years? Absolutely not. I mean, I've been doing this for almost 15 years now. Atkins, low carb, some paleo stuff, and then ketogenic in carnivorous eating. And I feel amazing. I mean, I feel the best ever off of keto and carnivore. Carnivore, I actually feel the best. You don't have to think about anything. You don't have to worry about anything. Just eat. You just eat good quality steaks and pork and lamb and oysters and fish and all this other. I mean, there's no thinking behind it. And you don't gain weight. You lose weight and you keep getting stronger. So don't chase ketones. Just enjoy your carnivorous eating and live your life. That's all you can do. All right, guys. Be blessed. Got any questions, leave them in the comment box below. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, hit that little bell.